I'm very disappointed in Khanna and his comments that he made about being able to form a partnership with Marjorie Taylor Greene, because I think he's advocating for the idea that there's no war but the class war, right? This idea that I think if you say you're progressive or leftist, whatever, right, that all you have to do is advocate for class, and then the progressive policies that follow will solve America's problems forever. But I think that's like an ahistorical thing, and I think it's only reserved for people that don't have to consider race in their day-to-day issues, right? Because if we look in U.S. history, right, our three most progressive times or blips in our history have been probably Reconstruction, the New Deal, and the Great Society programs, right? And using those as an example, and I'm going to talk about this more because I think it's finally clicking in my old age, that race was basically used in each of those instances to literally devalue, I think, the pushes for how America could be more responsible to all of its people. And the nefarious actors that used it follow the same playbook every single time. Because what ends up happening for each of these programs is that in order to fix the wrongs, you do have to end up helping the people that have been most affected, right? And these usually help poor groups that are considered minority status, but also poor white people at the same time. It lifts up both those people at the same time. It gives them protections. But then these nefarious actors want to highlight how one group receives more benefit than white people, and then white people get apathetic towards this particular advantage, and then that is slowly used over the course of decades or years to dissolve these actual programs, right? Like when we think about kind of the Reconstruction era, one thing I like to bring up is the fact that the 15th Amendment gave, if I want to say, black men the right to vote. And one important thing to realize is that white women in the South especially consider that an affront to them, right? And they literally went up against the idea of teaming up with black people to advocate for their own right to vote. They literally said, we are more white than we are disenfranchised citizens. And they delayed their own progress, in my opinion, for decades, right? We go into the New Deal. We want to bring up the fact that in order to get a lot of those progressive policies that we enjoy in today's world, FDR made a calculated decision because of Southern Democrats to cut out black people from a lot of these advantages. Like considering the fact that like Social Security in its initiating consideration did not allow agricultural workers to get that advantage. I had to think about it, the National Labor Relations Board, right? One of the first caveats or cutouts was agricultural workers, which was especially black people, right? Consider the fact that when we had labor unions, which is where a lot of the initiating action for some of these progressive era type changes, they literally cut out a significant portion of the population because of the idea of race. And then the Great Society program, where we talk about like affirmative action, or we talk about people's right to votes being protected, or we talk about like welfare, right? White people gained more advantage from those particular programs than black people. But over the last few decades, all nefarious actors did is associate it with race, and that they've allowed those programs to either be defunded or cut out in the present day. And so, like, this is why I have a problem with the ways in which Khanna is establishing that he wants to make kind of a coalition with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, and Ann Coulter. Because it's this flawed idea that you only just have to advocate for class with the white working class in order to push for a progressive policy. But at every point in time, and this is something I'm going to go more into in further videos, all of these progressive policies are always dismantled and they're always weakened because we want to associate it with a particular racial group. And like Khanna isn't thinking of the idea that these policies, regardless of how good they are, will always have enemies. And they are going to look for the most effective tool to dismantle it. And we've been shown that conservatives play the long game. It does not matter if you get these progressive policies, if you want to make them robust and durable, because we are losing some of these programs that we've been championing, kind of like in I guess, progressive circles, right? We've been championing some of these ideas, right? Caring for the healthcare or old age or anything else. All of these things are being dismantled as we speak now, because a lot of these things are associated with racial groups. Like, there is this misunderstanding in America that like food stamps is utilized by black people in a aggressive number, and that it's more for black people than white people. There are more white people on food stamps than black people, but these people will vote against their own interests because they associate with a particular race. And I don't think you make an agreement with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Tucker Carlson or Ann Coulter, because they are the same kind of people that will utilize race to destroy some of these ideas, with the idea that they're just asking questions about who is receiving these benefits. And I think this is getting into some of my, I think, apprehension in just kind of joining into like the idea of like, hey, am I a progressive? Am I a leftist? Am I this? Am I that? I think a lot of the ways in which people try to disregard race is kind of going to defeat this entire program that people are pushing in this present day. And that doesn't mean you don't advocate for it with these people, but I think we need to, share this pattern, right? And I'm going to have a few videos on this, but is a pattern that happens throughout history. If white people and black people, and I'm just saying white and black because it's everything America's about, white and black. If white people and black people receive the benefits to a particular program, at every point in time in U.S. history, actors who want to destroy it have always said that black people gain more of an advantage, and then because white people get anxiety and they get scared, they then vote to remove those programs because they don't think that they're getting the massive benefits that would happen. And like, this is my fear. Say we get all of these programs, right? We get the housing, the Green New Deal, we get free college, we get universal health care. If we don't address the ways in which race is a consideration, we're going to leave it open to crazy attacks that will be very, very effective, because the white moderate and the white working class, they're flip-floppy, right? They flip-flop, right? You cannot trust them to stay consistent. And I hope that's not like particularly rude, but you really can't trust the white moderates to stay on the course, right? They're free agents and they're always going to go. And Khanna is busy looking for a coalition instead of, I think, building with the people that actually do understand that you need to consider racial issues when you bring up these class issues at the same time. And if you don't do it at the same time, you're gonna end up destroying your own programs, and then we're gonna regress, which is what's happening right now, because we did not address the ways in which race is a major part of all American decisions, as well as it is a blind spot for a lot of American people. We're losing our rights, and things are getting worse and worse and worse, and people are getting more and more explicit about how they don't care. And so I'm kind of like ranting at this point, and I do need to break it down so that people actually follow through. But it's coming to the idea that if we don't associate race and class together, you leave any kind of progressive policy open to its own destruction. And in a way, you will end up just straight up just promoting, I think, the uplift of white people above everyone else. Because I'm considering the fact that if you get everything you want, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to see focus on the people that are most affected, right? Or have the most negative experiences in American society. And then the assholes like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Ann Coulter, when they see those percentages of like, hey, there's more black people going to get healthcare now that healthcare is universal, or hey, we're building more housing in black areas because that, they're all gonna be like, hey, funny question, why are my tax dollars being used to rebuild these areas, and we're not really having anything built in the suburbs, or I'm not getting better healthcare now that it's universal, it just costs more. And then they'll just be like, I'm asking questions, and then white people get anxious and feel as though their money's being wasted, and then they'll end up destroying a program that actually benefits them and their children. And so Khanna is disappointed in this way, and it's, I think, an indictment of the ways in which the class, no war but the class war, is actually a halfway issue, or it's a halfway solution to the problem. So yeah.